All right, let's hop to it here. This is the definition of a cropping system, or at least the one we're going to use in this course. It refers to crops, their sequence, and their management, all of that adapted to a given environment. And this is a definition that you should know almost by heart. It may be a question on later tests. Now, we can boil this sentence down. We can pare it down to basically three different letters separated by two X's, G by E by M. All right, now what do each of those three letters mean? Okay, so the G refers to genotype, which is the crop species that are grown over time in a given farm, and within species, the variety that is chosen. So you'll remember earlier in this course, Barry talked about how soybean varieties vary in their relative maturity, so there are differences in photoperiod sensitivity and perhaps temperature sensitivity, and so different varieties of soybean are grown in different parts of North America. And so indeed, a farmer in Ontario will grow a different variety of soybean than a farmer further south in the States. So that's the G. So E refers to environment, which encompasses factors that farmers basically have no control over. They just kind of take what they get. And that's things like the climate and different soil attributes. So one example of a climate factor is the frost-free period or the length of the growing season. Another aspect, for example, is the tendency for that region to experience abiotic stresses such as heat stress, waterlogging stress, or drought. Okay, some environments are just more prone to, say, heat stress or drought than others. Okay, and so genotypes would have to be adapted to those common stresses. Then we have soil attributes, and there's a number of different ones we can talk about. For example, drainage class. So how quickly does water drain through that soil profile? We can talk about things like soil texture. You know, if a farmer is growing crops on a heavy clay soil or a soil that is primarily sandy. We can also think about, the natural fertility of that soil, things like the cation exchange capacity or soil organic matter. And for soil organic matter, maybe you can argue in the long term that farmers can control soil organic matter, but certainly in the short run, from season to season, they take what they get. Okay, so a number of soil factors are going to combine to form the environment in combination with the climate. So M refers to all the management decisions made by farmers, and this encompasses a wide range of different decisions. For example, tillage, when to till and how to till, or not to till at all. Choice of different herbicide or pesticides. Things like row spacing, how wide are the rows on their fields, or plant population, how many seeds per hectare or per acre are they going to sow. Management also will refer in part to crop rotation, what crop species and varieties to grow in what sequence. So this G by E by M framework is what we're going to use to analyze cropping systems. And going back to the motivating question of the previous video, how did cropping systems become so wildly successful and productive over the past 100 years? We can indeed use this framework to answer the question. So we can think about, how did genotypes improve over the past 100 years? How did the environment improve in the past 100 years? And we can maybe think a little bit about climate change, and we can think a little bit about improvements in soil management. Again, over the long term, some soil attributes can actually change. We'll talk a little bit about that. And you can also say M improved, right? Over the past 100 years, management decisions improved. And so the answer to the how, using this framework, how did cropping systems improve? It's because all three of these things improved together, right? G improved, E improved, and M improved. What I am going to argue, and I think most people would agree, that it's a bit more complex than that. In fact, what happened was that the interaction between genotypes, environment, and management are responsible for the tremendously productive and successful cropping systems that we have, in this country and in much of the developed world. It's not any single component, it's the interaction between these components. All right, so what do I mean by that? We're going to go through some examples.